It's a done deal. The Keba Keita connection to Chris Burgess is paid off as Keba Keita is committed to the BYU men's basketball program. What does he offer to Kevin Young and company? We're talking about it on today's show.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I'm Jake Hatch, host of Locked On Cougars, a resident BYU insider. Thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Appreciate all of you who are everydayers with us right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. The motto is your team every day, and as such, this is your original daily podcast focused on all things BYU sports. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Make every moment more with FanDuel. Right now, new customers, you get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Think about that. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. All right, big news. BYU officially announcing the signing of University of Utah transfer center Keba Keita. Now, a lot of you out there expected this to happen. I frankly was waiting for it to happen. It just seemed inevitable that once Chris Burgess joined the BYU basketball program, his connection to Keba Keita and him entering the NCAA Transfer Portal, it seemed way too natural a fit for him to follow his position coach at Utah to BYU. What does Keba Keita offer to the BYU basketball program? Well, right now, he is your starting five-man in my mind for the BYU basketball program. It's nothing against Fousseyni Traore, but the way that Kevin Young described his style of basketball, having a 4-out, 1-in alignment, not being able to even play 5-out, is he wants a big man who can roll to the rim and really just throw it down and just make life miserable at the rim for opponents. Well, what is Keba Keita's chief strength? It is as a rim roller. He absolutely is an impact guy on both ends of the court at the rim. And he does that obviously on offense, on pick and rolls. Any of you who watched BYU and Utah play last year saw him absolutely dominate in the paint along with other Utah bigs, but he was especially dominant out there as a big man, and I think this is going to be his opportunity to really emerge and show what he's capable of. Is he the premier size at center that you want? No, he's 6'8". He's got a 7+ foot wingspan, so that makes him play bigger than he actually is. But he's just, frankly, he's not the 6'11", 7 foot big that you would ideally like to have in the Big 12 for BYU basketball. There is still an opportunity for BYU to add that, whether it's via the transfer portal, junior college ranks, a late rising a high school player, or even in the international scene. They could bring somebody over from Europe that could fill that role. But right now, as things stand for the BYU basketball program, Keba Keita is the starting five-man in my mind. His athleticism is off the charts. He looks like he's been chiseled out of granite. He's an incredible physical specimen, and he's an explosive, incredible athlete to boot. I think he'll be very comfortable at BYU. He's got a fellow countryman in Fousseyni Traore. Both of them are natives of Mali in Africa, the country of Mali, and obviously that will lend itself to him being more comfortable alongside a countryman of his, and also having played alongside guys at Wasatch Academy like Richie Saunders, Fousseyni Traore, and the like, that will obviously add to his comfort level in Provo. He's only moving 40 miles south from Salt Lake City to Provo, so there's everything matches up with, I think, was an ideal pickup for the BYU basketball program. I love the way that Keba Keita approaches the game. Yes, he was a backup last year, and his numbers suggest that he needs to reduce his foul counts in terms of 40-minute averages to be able to stay on the court for the BYU basketball program, but he has still got time on his side to develop that. The best way I can describe Keba Keita to you as a BYU fan is he is what BYU coaches hoped that Atiki Atiki would become at some point during his BYU career. Now, any of us who watched AAA play during his time at BYU before entering the NCAA transfer portal, it just never came to fruition. Keba Keita is that quote-unquote finished product that you hope that that AAA, speaking of Atiki could have been for BYU. And the best part is he's still got multiple years of eligibility remaining if he so chooses to use them. He is going to be able to step into a more prominent role. Obviously, he was the backup to Brandon Carlson at Utah, playing a more limited role as off the bench. And this is his opportunity, I feel like, to, in his mind, step into a starting position and really show what he's capable of. He'll be playing against his former teammates when BYU and Utah get together in that rivalry game twice next season, I would expect, with the 20-game alignment. I'm sure that BYU and Utah will play home and home. in the Big 12. But honestly, I think this is a major pickup for Kevin Young, and he continues to just absolutely just hit it out of the park in his early run as BYU men's basketball head coach. It's really impressive the way that he's gone about executing things, bringing in very strategic assistants, guys like Brandon Dunson, and in this case, Chris Burgess, absolute home run hires that have led BYU to pick up some high-level guys, and none more so than Keba Keita. So I think that Keba absolutely fits what BYU needs. He's uber athletic, which will fit very well with BYU hoping to upgrade their athleticism at every position, it feels like, across the board in the Big 12. But at the same time, he is not going to be a ball-dominant big. He's not going to be demanding the ball. He understands what his role is going to be. It's to protect the rim on the defensive side of the court as a five-man who can absolutely just rock it when it comes to blocking shots. He's got an incredible penchant for understanding when he needs to go up and block shots. He's got great timing. He's got the hops to really get up there and challenge at the rim. And then on the offensive side of the glass, he's going to be that rim roller. He's going to come off screens. He's going to set screens for guys like Dallin Hall, Dawson Baker, and whoever else might be running the offense for BYU, and they'll run those pick and rolls to death, and he will be able to feast at the rim on opposing bigs with his ability just kind of to bully his way to the rack. So I'm not trying to come off as some major fanboy on this, but I can't think of any downside really of what this means for the BYU basketball program. I think it is a monster pickup, just simply due to the fact that he understands what his role is going to be. He's very comfortable, obviously, working with Chris Burgess, and once again, he's got former teammates at the prep academy level at Wasatch Academy alongside him in Provo. So win-win-win all the way around, it feels like, for the BYU basketball program, and I cannot wait to see what Keba is capable of doing in a bigger role now for the BYU basketball program. So let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you guys. Do you think that he is the starting five-man for BYU? Do you hope that they go out and find another guy who's a 7-footer to be a defensive anchor alongside him? The other question, I guess I'll add real quick as well, is can he and Fousseyni Traore coexist on the court together should BYU opt to go with a 2-forward alignment? That's a big question in and of itself. And I know that Foose, going into his senior season, his final season of eligibility, he expects to be a high-level, high-usage player, and he's a different type of player. He's capable of playing in the pick and roll, but he's more of a drop the ball down into the low post and let him go to work with his back to the basket. Keba Keita doesn't have that refined of an offensive game, it feels like, at this juncture. So there's two different styles there that you can play with if you're Kevin Young. And I think that lends itself to versatility with regards to your lineups, and we'll see how it ultimately plays out. But I think this is a pretty savvy pickup for BYU, and I for one, can't wait to see the finished product for this BYU basketball program. But I think this is another home run for Kevin Young and picking up Keba Keita out of the transfer portal. And it wasn't easy, I will tell you that much. He had a number of other programs once he entered the portal who were offering some pretty lucrative NIL deals, and I'm sure BYU ponied up in their own right to make him feel comfortable money-wise to come and join the BYU men's basketball program. But this is a very, very big, quite literally big pickup for the BYU Cougars. All right, coming up here in just a minute, we are going to talk about, some pettiness in the BYU-Utah rivalry. Did the University of Utah really spurn BYU when it comes to the Holy War game this fall up at Rice-Eccles Stadium? We'll delve into that coming up next right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Yahoo Finance. Now, all of you out there, no matter where you're at in life, are concerned with money. All of us are. The best part is that Yahoo Finance is a sponsor of ours, and the best part is they want to help you guys out wherever you guys are at in your financial journey. The best part is when it comes to your financial future, you might think you've done it all. You've saved, you've researched, you've invested all that you can. Now you need to take those investments to the next level by using the great tool that every financial wizard seems like uses, and that is Yahoo Finance. For more than 25 years, they have been the brand behind every great investor. Whether you're a seasoned investor or looking for that extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and data you need in one place. The best part is they are the number one finance destination, providing a holistic view at financial news cycles, including breaking news, original editorial perspectives, analyst ratings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. And the best part is you can bring all of your different accounts into one hub and see them all with the click of a mouse. That's the best part about that. With a community of over 90 million users each month, their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, and that's our friends at yahoofinance.com. They are the number one financial destination. That's yahoofinance.com. One more time, yahoofinance.com. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Appreciate all of you for being with us on today's show. All right. In the interest of full disclosure, I had recorded an episode right before the Keba Keita news came out. So I am going to transition over to a part of what I'd previously recorded, and let's talk about BYU and Utah. This rivalry is awesome, folks, and it appears that the pettiness level, it is still there, at least on the part of the University of Utah. The renewal of the Holy War, I am super excited for. BYU and Utah back in the same conference together for the first time since 2010. And let's just put it this way. If you want to go to that game, apparently you better have some friends that are in the Crimson Club, because it appears, according to a release from BYU, that there will not be any tickets allotted for BYU fans to buy them through Brigham Young University to go up to Eccles Stadium. Now, this is an interesting situation because there was an email sent out yesterday by BYU, and I'll read the stanza on the Utah game. It says this, quote, "Tickets are not available for purchase through BYU to the game at Utah. For tickets to this game, you must purchase through the University of Utah or the secondary ticket market." Okay. How petty is this? If Utah is really doing this where they're limiting and maybe just shutting out BYU completely, that's a bad look. Is there an omission here that happened? Was it essentially Utah getting a black eye because BYU omitted some information? Because as I understand it, the Big 12 bylaws do stipulate that each university is supposed to allot an amount of tickets to the visiting school at each one of these Big 12 games. I don't remember the exact number. I want to say it's in the low thousands, maybe 3,000 or 4,000 tickets are expected to be allotted. Now, are there penalties involved with that? Maybe so. And maybe Utah simply said, you know what? We're willing to suck it up and deal with that while we pack our stands full of potentially 50,000 Utah fans, because Eccles Stadium is now north of 50,000 in terms of their capacity with their new South End end zone complex. So I would like to give the University of Utah the benefit of the doubt. I really would. But come on now. You would think that BYU, in a release in an email that they sent out about away tickets, would have said, hey, by the way, we have an allotment. They're being held back for legacy level. Like you guys know how the Cougar Club works. They have these different levels that you join and you have to pay a certain amount. I would imagine that legacy have like legacy 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, as well as the AD circle and the coaches circle, like the top level in terms of those donors to the Cougar Club. I would imagine have access to tickets to a game of this caliber. I would have thought BYU would have put that in the release, but maybe not. Maybe they just decided, you know what, we're not going to worry about that information. But here's the deal. I am not surprised in any way, shape, or form if Utah is acing out BYU from having a ticket allotment for that game. If they do have an allotment, yes, I would imagine that they are going to the legacy members of the Cougar Club, and those will be snapped up in a second. They're probably already spoken for, quite honestly, if they are available. And that I get that part of it. And maybe BYU decided, you know what, let's just leave this information out and not have to worry about it. But the bigger thing is, this is what this rivalry is all about. I love the BYU-Utah rivalry, and I come at it from a media perspective these days. I grew up a BYU guy. That's why I do this podcast. I grew up in the shadows of Lavelle Edwards Stadium. I sat in the West Stands with my grandpa for years and years and years, and he's still alive to this day, and we talk often about BYU sports. He just turned 90 earlier this year, and he's one of my favorite people. And if you want anybody to blame for me being what I am, doing what I do in media, blame my grandpa Herman. He is the reason why I am as engrossed with BYU as I am, because from a very young age, he was teaching me about the game and games, speaking of football and basketball, taking me to games. And the Utah rivalry to me is special. And I know that not everybody finds enjoyment in it. And I get that, because it has become, let's be honest, pretty downright ugly at points in its history. But the thing about it now, as I work in the media, and I've done this for the past decade plus, is that I approach it from a perspective of, this is incredible content. the fan bases, BYU and Utah, they are at each other's throats. You guys are at each other's throats literally every day, 24/7, 365. It can be the most innocuous little thing out there. And if a BYU and Utah fan take exception to anything put out in the media, on social media, on a message board, even in real life and chatting back and forth, it can devolve very, very quickly. And that's what I'm pulling back the curtain on sports radio. Guess what? We make money off of this. Hey, breaking news. But here's the deal. I love the fact that if Utah is being petty with this, it adds to what is an already I believe is the best rivalry in the Big 12. I don't care about the territorial cut between Arizona and Arizona State. You have Farmageddon out there between Kansas State and Iowa State. There's a number of good rivalries out there. I'm telling you, BYU, Utah, it is the big grand poobah of them all in this new age of the Big 12 Conference. Sorry to anybody else who thinks otherwise, but this rivalry is going to come to prominence even more so, it feels like now. And the fact that Utah comes into the Big 12 and just reading the statement as is screams to me that Utah said, hey, BYU, no tickets for you. Tell your fans to call their buddies who are members of the Crimson Club or hit all the different secondary markets. Our friends at Game Time would love to help you guys out, I'm sure, with tickets. And obviously you can use their promo code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. A little bit of a plug for them in this. But the thing about it is, I love this. The pettiness. It exists quite literally at all levels. Now, here's the deal. Those of you out there saying, well, Jake, if Utah's going to do this to BYU should return the favor. I'd like to think BYU would be willing to be petty like this, but knowing what I know of BYU and the way that Tom Homo and BYU's administration likes to operate, they will literally, figuratively, whatever you want to term it, they will turn the other cheek and they will give an allotment to the University of Utah. You will have that band sitting up in that corner of the north end zone of LaVell Edwards Stadium in 2025. And whenever they have a play of any certain magnitude, they'll be playing that fight song. You can guarantee it. I will mark it down in ink if you want, because I just don't see BYU going to this level of the pettiness. Like I said, I hope that there is an allotment and it's essentially BYU commission, like sin by omission versus sin by omission versus commission, where they omitted that information with regards to maybe an allotment actually being available, but it's being snapped up and spoken for by high level donors. But man, what a way to kick off the renewal of the rivalry game and the holy war as BYU and Utah get back together in the Big 12 Conference. I love it, folks. I make money off of it. I got no problem admitting that bold-faced. I do it in sports radio. I do it on this podcast. But hey, Utah, good on you guys. I love this. This is the good stuff, folks. Enjoy it. It is only going to get worse from here, it feels like. But wow. What a statement to put in an email, and it obviously started taking over on social media yesterday, and it's only continued. Let's put it that way. All right, coming up here in just a minute, we're going to flip over a target at the running back position that BYU has been recruiting. He has set his announcement for his commitment decision to come on Friday. Who is Kell Breslin? What could he offer to the BYU football program if he so chooses to attend Brigham Young University? We'll talk about him next, right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Now, FanDuel is here for you guys to have fun, and it's winner take all time, obviously, in the NBA and NHL, and they want to give you a shot to bring home a big win of your own with our friends at FanDuel. It's all available on an easy-to-use app. The best part is, right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Think about that. A $5 bet you win, it's $150 added to your account just like that, no questions asked, and you're off to have more fun with our friends at FanDuel. You can use all that money to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Futures odds when it comes to football. If you think BYU is over under on their win total, if an NFL team you think is going to blow it out of the water this season, you can do that. Have fun with baseball. As I said, NBA and NHL in the middle of their playoffs. All of it is available to you guys from our friends at FanDuel. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. Once again, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon to take advantage of that offer. $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's all courtesy of your friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Appreciate all of you guys for being with us. If you've not done so already, please join our Locked On Cougars Insider group. It's a great way to get inside details on what I'm hearing about BYU sports across the board. Comes to your phone in the form of a text message. You get a 14-day free trial, just $5 a month after that. Check it out. Click the link in the show notes below, whether you're watching and or listening to this, and join us there. It's a great community that we're building, and we'd love for you guys to be a part of it as well. All right. As I mentioned, I had recorded an episode, and I'm kind of piecemealing this together. Let's talk about Kell Breslin, a guy that BYU is apparently very much in the running for as a potential commit for the 2025 class for their football program. What does he offer to BYU? Well, allow me to explain a little bit further right now. All right, let's talk about Kell Breslin. Now, he is a guy that got an offer from BYU a while back, and I don't necessarily think he made the same headlines that other offers from the BYU football program have made. And obviously, different guys have different cachets in terms of their familiarity, speaking of fan familiarity with them. Well, this is a young man from Faith Lutheran High School down there in Nevada. Now, being an out-of-state prospect, that probably tempered a little bit of what BYU fans know about this young man, but I'll just say this. I'm very impressed with him as an athlete. 5'11", 190 pounds. So he's not I'm trying to say, he's not the specimen that everybody aspires to have as a running back. But what I love about watching his film, speaking of Kell Breslin, is he is a hard-nosed runner who is very, very smart with the football in his hands. He allows blocks to get set up, and then he attacks. He's rated as an 83 in terms of his rating from 24/7 Sports. He does not have a composite rating from the 24/7 composites. That means that other networks, rivals, On3, ESPN may not have put a rating on him yet, but he is the 14th best prospect in the state of Nevada, and I think this could be a pretty savvy pickup if BYU were to get him. Now, Blair Angelo and Greg Biggins, who are two of the foremost authorities when it comes to prognosticating where guys are going to sign and where they're going to commit to, have both put in a level 6, a medium confidence pick for BYU to be the destination for Kell Breslin. What does it mean for BYU to bring him in? Well, the one thing I love about Kell Breslin, yes, he's rated an 83. So it's a little bit lower than maybe what you would like as a BYU fan for a Power 4 program. But watching his film, Breslin is a guy who the big knock on him, based on what I can see from his film, is I don't think he has the top end speed that would probably push him higher up in prospect ratings. But watching his film, as I said, he's a very smart running back. You can tell he understands the concepts of what he's doing. He runs an offense that runs essentially a blocking scheme that's very similar to BYU, where they've got wide zone, mid zone, and inside zone schemes that he is obviously very adept at. And that'll be very critical if he does pick BYU for him to understand that as he comes to Provo. The other thing about this is a lot of you like player comps, and I'm going to make a player comp for Cale Breslin that may not necessarily be the one that you're thinking of. My player comp for me, I'm going for the BYU pantheon of running backs, is Squally Canada. Now, Squally was an interesting prospect. He was a 4-star prospect out of, I think it was Milpitas High School in Northern California, went to Washington State for a season, played under the late Mike Leach, and then transferred, coming to BYU, and really kind of bided his time behind Jamal Williams. Him and Jamal became very, very close friends during their time at BYU together. But when Jamal moved on, it was Squally Canada's time to shine. And he had some very good outings for BYU, but injuries really slowed him down. Remember, he was one of the key cogs, maybe the key cog in BYU's monumental upset of Wisconsin back in 2018. His running in that game was absolutely pivotal to BYU springing that upset, and he had some very, very good performances. The one thing about what I thought from Squally Canada that he lacked was top-end speed. If he had top-end speed, Squally Canada would have a bigger role for BYU football. But what I love about Squally is he played with heart when he was out there for the BYU football program. Any of you who remember Squally will remember that this was a guy that, yes, he maybe didn't have all the physical tools that some of the other great running backs in BYU history have had. Jamal Williams, Harvey Unga, most recently Tyler Algier. And I see, by the way, elements of Tyler Algier and Kell Breslin with his ability, like Tyler Algier, to allow blocks to develop, diagnose where he's going to attack, and then exploit it up the field for big gains. I see that from him. But the playing style, the body type, what I see from him on film screams to me more of a Squally Canada. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing by any means. Squally Canada was a very, very capable running back for BYU. Kell Breslin would come in ostensibly as an understudy to LJ Martin. And I believe LJ Martin is an absolute thoroughbred at the running back position. He showed incredible flashes for BYU last year as a freshman. He's packed on 20 pounds and he looks completely physically different based on what I saw in spring ball from him. And the hope is that he will go out there and make that running back position his own. Well, Kell Breslin, if he does pick BYU, like I said, he's going to make that commitment tomorrow. It's scheduled for 11 a.m. Pacific time. So that's noon Mountain time. For those of you on the East Coast, that's 2 o'clock if you're looking at time zone wise. But the bigger thing is, I think he would come in and be afforded the opportunity to develop within the BYU football program without the pressure of having to come in and essentially step in and be the guy day one. LJ Martin was not expected to be what he was last year in large doses for BYU, but the circumstances being what they were with the injuries at the running back position, you lost guys ahead of him in the pecking order, and he was forced into action. Could that happen for a guy like Kell Breslin when he shows up at BYU potentially next year? There's always that possibility. It's just what football is. It's a game that is violent. There are going to be injuries. Guys are going to take hits and they're going to get hurt. It's part of the nature of football. I that's one thing. And by the way, just a little bit of a what I'm trying to say. It's a pet peeve of mine when football fans and BYU fans in the circumstance, a guy gets hurt and immediately the blame has to go somewhere. It has to go to the training staff or the coaches. You know what, folks? Football is a violent sport. Inherent risk in there with injuries, but beside the point. Cale Breslin is a guy that I think would be able to come into the BYU football program, work on his body, work on his speed, and maybe by the second year he's in Provo. So in theory, this is 2026 we're talking about down the line, that he is ready to contribute. And at that point, LJ Martin is potentially a senior, maybe has 2 monster seasons and off to the NFL. And then it's Cale Breslin's time to move into the limelight for the BYU running back position. Like I said, this is not a high rated running back, but what I see is a very smart player who knows what he is supposed to be doing on the field at all times, and he exploits it. Like I said, he allows blocks to get set up, and then he just absolutely chews up yardage beyond that. That's what I like about this. And he goes to a private faith-based high school, so that fits right in line with what BYU is as a faith-based institution of higher learning. So I think this is a pretty natural addition. Now, we'll see who Cale ultimately picks tomorrow. Now, you might be wondering, well, Jake, he's an 83. Who can he be offered by? Really, it's all that big. Well, there's a school that I just talked about that Squally Canada helped string an upset on. Yeah, the Wisconsin Badgers have apparently offered Kell Breslin, and it feels like it's down to BYU in Wisconsin. There's a UConn, FAU, speaking of Florida Atlantic, are also in the mix here, but the two power programs that have offered him, Wisconsin, who's got a very strong history of running backs in their own right, maybe the strongest in recent memory of some of the great backs that they've had, and then Brigham Young University. BYU's obviously got the connection where he's close to home. It's a short flight from Las Vegas to Salt Lake City or Provo. So I look at this. I've got a good feeling if these two guys, speaking of Blair Angelo and Greg Biggins, they know people, they talk to so many people on a regular basis. If they're projecting Kell Breslin to pick the BYU Cougars, I would say you probably want to pay attention to that and prepare for to celebrate a commitment tomorrow afternoon. And we'll have more on this on our future edition of Locked On Cougars. There you have it. A big thank you for all of your support of the podcast. Thank you for bearing with me, having to piecemeal this together. Like I said, I recorded an entire edition, literally pushed stop and saw the news for Keba Keita, but it's a monster pickup. I love that pickup for the BYU basketball program, and I'll be poking around trying to find out some more details on what Keba offers, what the next steps for the BYU basketball program are as we move forward here with the next edition of the podcast coming out tomorrow, speaking of our Friday edition of the show. So once again, a big thank you to all of you for making this your first listen of the day. Thank you to all of you who are everydayers with us as well. And until tomorrow, my friends, have a great rest of your day. This has been the Locked On Cougars podcast.